2009, I went to Rome and won the ISKA European MMA title by choking a Hungarian unconscious.
How did that come about?
It's a good question. I think they were looking for. I remember the trials coming up for it, and I went to Birmingham because my cousin Gilmore
Yeah.
kickboxes. So he said the ISKA now have opened up amateur MMA, so come along. So I went along to the trial and just performed well, and then went back to all the coaching sessions. I think I broke my hand 6 weeks out, so I was like, this is going to be tight, whether I'm not going to be, but I'll train for it anyway. And I'd signed up for it. And then I just went over to Rome and battered a Hungarian guy.
Yeah, just had the one fight.
Just the one.
Yeah.
So the Hungarians, we turned up there, and we were all like the England squad. It was like, that was a good camaraderie, and the Hungarians were crazy, mate. They were walking up to people, just getting in their faces, and it was weird because this isn't like a Fight UK sort of set. This is ISKA, as in there's kids, there's mats, parents. So like, if anything, we're like the freak show. Like, we're not the show. Like, it's all the kids are there. So they'd gone round asking all the other countries, and there was a few countries that pulled out because they were so aggressive, and two guys followed me into the toilet and started telling me stuff, and I was like, man, of all the places to challenge, never when someone's taking a wee. I think you should be killed if you do that, because it's just, it's like an international, you should never, when someone's taking a wee, you can't be like getting in their face, and they were. And that whole experience to me was not about the fighting, but it was about handling those nerves.
Yeah.
Because that was tough. That was like every day, right, we're fighting this afternoon, and you're getting ready for it. And again, it's watching your opponents. And if you're not, and you get this in boxing as well, the amount of people I watched on pads before fighting them and thought, flipping hell, this is going to be crazy. And then when you actually fight them, it's not like that. So it taught me a lot about what you project and what you allow yourself to see, and remember that other people who are watching you probably thinking the same thing,
Yeah.
because the mental game's a massive part, I think, of fighting.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely gone through that process myself. I know Andre was saying a similar thing for his fights, going through that process of looking around the room and thinking, what am I doing here? That guy looks like he's this and that and whatever else. So when you were a kid doing boxing, how did you think of fighting then? So you're stepping into to do a competitive match. Oh no, so saying that, how old were you when you started boxing again?
I was late. I was like 20 or 21 or something, boxing in Ireland.
What about kickboxing?
Earlier, like 14, 15.
But you didn't compete?
I did, but just sort of like club tournaments and stuff, so it wasn't really...
Can you remember what that felt like? So if that's your first kind of experience of the, fight nerves.
Yeah, I would say that the
Do you
sparring...
think you had any? Do you have any
I
fight
don't.
nerves
I
as a
think
kid?
it was a completely different thing when I was doing kickboxing and competing and doing club tournaments, because even though it's fighting, it felt more like sport.
Yeah.
Whereas I guess that's what I was saying before, like when you go to boxing, it's like, no, like someone is trying to take your head off. So if you do full contact kickboxing, it's different because that's what you get. But if you do like continuous, or it's like a club tournament, the tempo is less, the aggression's less, and it is a skill and art. So like fight like. So I think boxing was the first time I was like, flipping out, this is so different. Like, this guy is trying to kill me. And
So go on. What was the boxing nerves like then? So that would be your first experience then, would you say, of...
Yeah, I think I used to suppress all the feelings and just kind of like parade around trying to be in my own head and be strong and all this stuff. But then what I noticed was I would rush everything. So I'd rush into the ring, and 2 rounds would go by, and by the 3rd round I'd realise where I am. It was crazy. It was like, I've done 2 rounds and I'm like, right, and I'm trying to catch up, and I'm going, right, okay, I've realised now that I can hit this guy with my jab, or I can move better than him, or I'm getting bullied in the corners or whatever. But until that point, it was all autopilot. And then going back to Andre Wynn, I remember him saying something about when he used to go to fights, how he'd really enjoy signing his name, take his time with the pen, and he'd be like, I'm choosing to be here. And that triggered something into me to go, don't run into the ring, take your time, like take longer than you think you need before you get in the ring. And as soon as I started to do that, it was like, right, now I'm ready to sort of box. because I always go into this autopilot haze. Like I didn't know where I was or anything. It was just reactional. And then with the experience, like I said, I'd take my time a bit more. I would like be consciously aware, and that's when I started to feel like I had more control. But yeah, it's a strange, like even like thinking about it now, like just like things like the smell of the canvas, and you can probably smell a bit of blood as well. And when you get cracked, as you know, hard in boxing, it can just be like the world falls apart, and you get a lot of those sort of situations. But then being able to be strong enough to move out of them and around. I think that's why I like the challenge of things. So it's an exciting feeling, but the nerves are definitely there. And yeah, I was definitely, I'd say, scared a lot of the time. Like, oh shit, this is going to be crazy.
Do you think even during the MMA fights, did you still have a feeling of like scared? Because you're talking about a new sport now. So this is the thing, like with a lot of, let's say, boxers might start off feeling exactly how you've felt to start with. But then, I don't know, you turn pro, you have a 30, 40 professional
career,
fight.
yeah.
By the time you're at the back end, do you feel the same way? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a hard one, really. I think as your proficiency level increases, it becomes less fear and more about what you need to do to win, which are two different things. So I think if you keep yourself competing and you keep yourself on the path, very often what you feel like a really good win would be, you'd be pressing the wrong buttons to make it happen. And with experience, you realize like, oh, this is how I set this situation up to win. And it does change your mind over time because you become more strategic. And then the worry about being hurt becomes less, I think, anyway. Even if you know someone's more powerful, you become more present, so you've got more options. But that's with consistency, because I think even if you take time out from it, because you can compete loads, don't compete for a few years, come back to compete, and you're like, this isn't what I remember. It's like, but you've lost the consistency.
Yeah.
So then again, you're fighting the same, fear or demons or whatever that you had before, but then you do have the blueprint of what to do. And
Yeah, there's almost that feeling of riding a bike, isn't there? You know, when you've been somewhere before, you're never going to have the same kind of mental sharpness, but there is experience there, regardless of how long it's been, that you can call upon.
Definitely.
So how many MMA fights did you have altogether?
This is the sort of thing I should have researched. I'm not sure, mate.
So you did a few Fight UKs,
Yeah.
went to Rome.
Yeah. Maybe 9. Yeah, maybe 9, something like that, 9.
But then you probably fell in love with jiu-jitsu during that time.
Yes.
And that's when we went on our mad tour.
We did.
Doing
We went
our
on the no fear policy.
competitions up and down the country.
I tell people like that every day. Even if they don't know what I'm talking about, I'm like, yeah, me and Liam going on no fear.
Competition and visits Costa on the way home.
Yeah. And those are happy times.
How many grappling matches do you think you've had?
No idea either, mate.
A lot though, right?
Yeah, I'd say quite a lot, yeah.
Like I said, we had that period, even just me and you together doing a lot of competitions, travelling. In fact, I say up and down the country, but I forget about Amsterdam and Paris and was there somewhere else we went as well? I kind of feel like there was 3.
Yeah.
Amsterdam, Paris. Can't think if there was one more.
Yeah, it was just good going along. And again, I think that was something that, in fact, I was saying to someone the other day, having like a no fear policy where you kind of go, it's not no fear, it's follow the fear. So it was like, we just started going, and it was just, we're competing, and that's it. And it's not this, it doesn't have to be this massive build up or this like, well, if I take 3 sips of coffee, that might overdo me or whatever. Because I think you can get really overthink everything. But when you're competing week in, week out, or every other week like we were, it just became more interesting. Because you were like we said, if we won, we won. If we lost, it didn't really matter. But you're turning up and you're doing it. And I think that was really good for me, because it kind of made me believe in myself a lot more. And sort of transform, like we said before, those nerves and that fear into something more meaningful.
Yeah, is competition so useful for that, for going and facing your fears? I mean, I've over the years done a lot of competitions on my own as well, and in foreign countries.
Yeah, you flew,
and that's
Europe,
been
man. Yeah,
been mental, but I was just so determined to do the actual competition and no one else was doing it. I just thought I was going to do it.
Yeah.
But
And respect for that. And that's also probably what paved the way for you doing what you've done. Because to do that's a big thing, man. Like to sort of, you know, book the flights, do your training, go over. And that's, I mean, when I boxed over in Dublin in the British and Irish University Championships, and I went over solo then. And I remember I was on placement. So I finished work on the Friday, drove to the airport, jumped on a plane, stayed in a hostel overnight full of like pissheads. And that was mad. And I was just by myself. But there was something nice about that. And then I got like a Scottish university load of coaches to corner me. So doing something like yourself is a big thing. I think people realise sometimes.
yeah, massively. I think there's a lot of people in their lives that probably won't realise it, but when you're at school or you're a young person, you, without even realising, you do most of the things that your friends will do, or you won't do stuff without the backing of a friend.
Yes.
The amount of people that would have got, say, into fights knowing that their friends are with them.
Yeah.
But if the friends weren't with them, there's no way they're going to like start trouble and get into fights. And I think as you get older, you're going to find more situations where you need to make decisions on your own for your future and your well-being or whatever else. And if you can't do that because you've been, I don't know, maybe even with you under your parents' wing for too long, or there's a couple of friends that you basically are under their wing, and whatever they do, you have to do what they do because you're not capable of making decisions yourself, or not just the decisions, but like being out there on your own. Like you almost feel like you're out in the cold a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think it's like it's important with the competition. Not that you have to go and compete on your own, but when you're doing things on your own that are important like that, it's building a different mental skill set where you can make decisions and be on your own. And I think that's really important to be able to do that. Otherwise, you just going, just a sheep basically, going along with the crowd and not being able to stand on your own.
Yeah,
so I think it's important for that reason.
Definitely agree, mate. Definitely agree.
Okay, so at this point, kind of going through your timeline, we've done the MMA, we've done the jiu-jitsu, then you become a CrossFit coach. And that comes from nowhere, to be honest with you, because I can remember you, obviously, like I said, we had this mad jiu-jitsu run where we're competing all the time, and then next thing, you found your next love, CrossFit.